What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Volleyball Source Podcast. My name is Everett Delorme, and it is June 1st, 2022. Today, we're going to be talking about the women's national team taking on their second Volleyball Nations League that kicks off today. Literally in 15 minutes is going to be first serve. I know I'm a little late on this. I apologize. But I just decided we need to get this done as close to before the event as possible. Maybe I'll switch on the match as we go. Today we're going to break down a bit of the roster, a bit of the outlook for this team going into their second Nations League, and talk a little bit, of course, about the week coming up. Right now they're competing in Shreveport-Bossier City down in Louisiana. Night one was last night. With the USA taking down Dominican. Both Dominican not looking great and USA bringing a B team. So I'm looking forward to this week. I'm looking forward to about 14 minutes when we get kicked off. But first, let's break this roster down. So we're going to... Well, I guess you guys can hear me now. Sorry about that. One of my audio settings. Okay. Well then, we're going to start back at the beginning. The chat is absolutely ripping me apart right now, and for good reason. Um, yeah, well, OBS. I changed the scene, right? The first one I had, I had audio at the beginning. Okay, what a freaking boomer, guys! I'm 30. I'm not a boomer. I'm a millennial. Jeez. Well then, okay. Well, we're gonna restart. We're gonna restart here from when we came to this page. Basically, this is the page for this weekend's roster, but we're gonna be talking about the coaches today. So the coaches are basically the same at the top. You got Shannon Windsor as the head coach, and I'll be the first to admit that I had my doubts when she was first appointed. Of course, going from someone with the pedigree of Tom Black and even Marcello Abondanza before that, a lot of pro experience, a lot of international experience, whereas Shannon Windsor had very little or none. She had been with the program before, but I'm the first one to admit that I was very impressed with the way that she handled and led that team last year, and I'm fully on board with her as our head coach, and I'm excited to see what this team has to do in year two. The second assistant coach there, you're seeing Vincenzo Maglio. He was there last year as well. I kind of thought I heard he was only supposed to be there for a year, so I'm interested to see that he's come back for a second one. He spent some time with the program back when Abondanza was head the coach, and also has a ton of experience working in Canadian volleyball with the University of Toronto women's team, helping them to a national title back in 2016, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But the one of the big changes is. Lauren Berto is no longer with the squad, and instead, in her place, is going to be UBC men's assistant coach and good buddy of mine, Matt Kruger, joining the squad with the women's national team. And I have to say, I don't think that there's a more deserving dude to be in this role. He's definitely one of my favorite people in Canadian volleyball, and might be up there with like the top 10 people I respect within Canadian volleyball. He's put in a lot of time behind the scenes with kind of the youth programs and whatnot, and has worked kind of hand in hand alongside Mike Hawkins at UBC to create a great program there. So I'm super excited to see Kruger in there with the women's national team. And another big shout out also to Nicole Ban, She's going to be working as the team manager, but Nicole Ban is actually the head coach of the women's sitting team and the Paralympic. So you've got a Paralympic coach on the bench as your team manager as well. So a really, really good coaching staff there for Team Canada. Now we're going to move on to just the general roster here. And I may not have finished that. I thought I had, but maybe we'll do it together here. It's a big roster, of course. It's the 25 person roster, and what you're going to see on the court is going to be largely similar to what you saw last year. It's going to be largely similar to what we saw at the NORCECA Championships as well. With a few additions, of course. I think the big one for everyone and the most exciting one, of course, is going to be Alexa Gray is back. She's healthy and she's ready to go, which is the best possible scenario for Team Canada. We saw her come in sparingly at the libero position, wearing the different jersey last year for Team Canada, but didn't really get to see her in action. Of course, she wasn't there at the NORCECA Championships at all either. And another big one that we were missing for the NORCECA Championships last season as well is Emily Maglio, and she's going to be stepping back in the middle blocker positions. There is a few other additions to the squad overall, and I'll be the first to admit that this sheet is not finished, so I apologize from that. There is a few differences from last year's roster. Most notably, I think on the left side, we brought in Vicky Savard. She joined the team for the NORCECA push last year. She's a veteran scorer coming out of the University of Montreal, out of Ottawa and the Ottawa Mavericks Volleyball Club. She's been playing professionally kind of all over the place for the past number of years. Played this past season in Ligue A in France, so doing a pretty good job of that. And I'm interested to see how she kind of fits into the mix. Caroline Liviston is back as well. Leftover things there from my men sheet as well. I apologize. Caroline Livingston is back on the left side as well. I think we're going to see her mostly in the same role as we saw her last year, just kind of coming in as a passing sub. And then a new addition to this team is going to be Melissa Langager. So she's, I believe, out of the Pac-Man Volleyball Club, but been playing the past few seasons at the University of Western. So super excited to see some more U-Sport talent. And surprisingly enough, a lot of the young talent coming in on this roster is all from U-Sports. Like Avery Heppel sitting in the middles there is out of the Trinity Western. Claire Corsini is a second year coming out of the UBC. Sydney Grills is at UBCO. So a lot of good incoming talent right now out of the U-Sport program. Now, I really don't want to start that debate. What's better, U-Sports, NCAA? It can kind of go all day, and it doesn't really matter now. I'm just gonna bring this over here. 2 seconds just to finish out a bit of this sheet as we go here. Obviously, we talked about Alexa Gray being the big addition into this year's lineup, but now that both Andrea Mitrovic and Hillary Howe are both a year older, they have that year of experience underneath their belt. They've both played another year of professionally. I mean, Hillary Howe was on a Béziers team that played in Champions League, right? So she got a ton of experience as well. I'm very interested to see how this all breaks down, especially on the left side. Now, I'm getting some notes from you guys in the chat here saying that the first starting lineup is going to feature Hillary Howe opposite Alexa Gray. So that's how we've got it for the first one overall. But yeah, like I said, I think that P2 position is going to be so important, especially now that Alexa's back and we can spread out that offense between Alexa and Kyra Van Reich, which we'll obviously talk about in a second. But I think that P2 position is going to be really important, especially for the serve receive, especially for playing defense, for taking those out assistant balls, really solidifying things. And it's going to be interesting to see which of those two athletes steps up to be in that position. So I think it should be fun. Moving on to the middle is hands down where we have the most depth. I mean, if you look at that list, Jen Cross legend, has been on this team for how many years now? I don't even know. Over a decade, which is scary. She's still with it. She's still pushing. Just came off a season where she won a championship with Panathinaikos in Greece, so you know she's still got it going on. As I mentioned before, Emily Maglio is back, also coming off another season with Nilüfer and the Mizli Sultan Liga in Turkey, which is, I don't know if you can call it the best league in the world because of the depth, but then you have to put it the second best league in the world, especially since now that Vakifbank got the quadruple, winning the Club World Championships and winning the Champions League just a couple of weeks ago. So Turkey is hands down one of the best leagues in the world, bar none. And she's a top level talent there. So those two is arguably one of the best middle pairings kind of in the world, and I'm fully going to go out and say that. But then when you add the depth there of Alicia Ogums and Jasmine White, there's just so many possibilities there in the middle, which I think is hugely important. Now, we're going to move over to the opposite. The opposite is going to be really, really simple. Kyra Van Reich is going to be the show. She was one of the top scorers this year in Turkey, finished 7th overall, I believe, scoring over 5 points per set. She was one of the top servers in the league as well, scoring 29 aces, top 10 server. So she's just blossoming into this fantastic talent and has really nestled herself in amongst some of the best leagues in the world, and it's really, 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 really impressive to watch. Shonda Joseph isn't with the roster this weekend, but she's been a long-time national team member, just coming off a great season in France as well. So you know that she's ready to be that that second opposite and come in and just provide a bit of a different look. She's obviously a little bit smaller than Reich, but still very physical. Puts up a great block, and just you can run a bit of a different offense in her. Natasha Calkins is a new one, and to be honest, she was part of the program a little while ago, so it's great to see her back in. And then of course we mentioned Sydney Grills earlier. Now I don't really know much about Sydney Grills. I'm pretty sure she played at UBCO this past season, but when we talked about her last night on the 9x9, because this is on this weekend's roster, which is interesting because they're bringing some of the young kids in as well. We had someone mention in the chat that he played against her she was playing with the boys team in high school volleyball, and she was hands down the best player on the team. So I'm excited to see her. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to see her on the court at all, but just because of how young she is. But I'm excited to see if this young talent is going to be able to come through at the VNL level. This is where kind of we get to the point where I had forgotten to finish out this sheet. I apologize. Let's blame that on my ADHD. And we're going to talk about the setters. Now, the setters for the first week is Bree King and I believe Courtney Baker. I'll double check that. Actually, we can check that right now. Yeah, Bree King and Courtney Baker. But I do believe that the 1-2 on this team is Bree King and Kim Rabitaille. Kim also coming off another great season in France. So many of these athletes playing in France this season, and I think she's been doing a fantastic job as the second setter on this team. I don't think there's any doubt in the world that this team is Bree King's and she is the starting setter for this team. But having Kim Rabitaille come in off the bench is a really, really good option. Now Courtney Baker is a nice tall athletic center. She's coming out of Dalhousie University. Has been playing pro for the past few years. She's been in the national team for a little while now. I believe she was in Hungary this year. I'm sorry, I should have brought that up. I apologize, guys. But another, she's not as young as the rest of this roster. I think she's like her, and she's probably the second oldest after Kim Rabitaille. But she can definitely provide some. I'm interested to see if she's going to be getting any minutes in this one, because she's such a physical athlete. So I'm interested to see if they maybe sub her in when she's in the front row just to bring some blocking and still have some hands up there. So it could be interesting. Sorry, it's 5:59 right now, so the game is starting essentially right away. So I'm going to jump in. Open up my Volleyball World TV. Actually, no, I'm going to go to cbcsports.ca because if you didn't know, this VNL will be featured. All of the Canadian matches will be featured for free on CBCSports.ca. That is, of course, if you're watching it in Canada. But I did have heard of these special little things called VPNs, and you could just transport yourself into Canada and then watch these matches for free on CBC Sports. So they're just doing the player intros right now, so we haven't missed anything yet. I'm going to go on a little bit longer because I do think that there's some things to talk about on this team. Finally, to round out the setters, we've got a youngster, Laura Madill. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Laura Madill is out of San Diego State. I'm pretty sure she played for the Halton Hurricanes Volleyball Club out of Southern Ontario, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do remember watching her, and yep, I was right. USD played for Halton Hurricanes, and I've always been a fan of Madill. And actually, there's another one on this roster from that team. I'm pretty sure is Ariel Palermo, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But I was a huge fan of Madill's hands, and she's a pretty big setter, 5'11". She moves pretty well, has hit hands, still playing D1, so she's still out there. But yeah, I do think that she could potentially have an impact for this team moving forward. Now, moving over to the Liberos, the Liberos are interesting because the Liberos are basically where there's so much youth coming through. Now, there was two Liberos last year, Cassie Bouillon and Kennedy Snape, who we see there, but Cassie Bouillon is no longer on this roster, and instead there's a lot of young girls here coming in to play for as a Libero. So I'm just gonna fill this in real quickly, so you guys, so you guys can see, and then Katerina Georgiadis. All right, first serve is off, by the way. So, oh well, I just typed that whole thing, and it didn't type. I apologize, guys. Just for the record, Julia Merman is the first one who got the start. But I mean, I think it's going to be a bit of a toss-up between Merman, Katerina Georgiadis, and Ariel Palermo, because they all bring kind of the same style of game to the court. Of course, now I'm getting distracted by all this. So yeah, that's the roster in a nutshell. It's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see a little bit more from this team. I think they're going to go a little bit deeper into the closet. But at the same time, I think we're going to go deeper into the closet sparingly, but we're going to see more options. Last year, we really didn't see all that many. Like Livingston came in a couple times. Kim Robitaille came in a couple times. I mean, Danny Smith was a veteran on the bench, and we barely saw her. Saw Shonda Joseph sparingly. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team kind of shapes out, because this is a team that last year had 3 wins, 3-12 overall over the 15 games, which isn't the best, but it wasn't the worst, right? They finished 13th, I believe. Yeah, third from last, or 13th or 14th, third from last, and actually did a pretty good job. Their 3 wins came against China, Germany in a 3-0 win, and against Serbia. So 3 very good teams. They went to 3 with big teams like Poland. So this team has the ability to go out there and get big wins. This team has the ability to play with all of them. The big problem last year was the depth and kind of closing out matches. We saw it especially in the Poland match, where they had the advantage and kind of fizzled off towards the end. And there was definitely more wins to be had at the end of tournaments with some of those weaker teams like Korea and Thailand, just because the lack of the bench that they had last year. Towards the end of the tournament, they were just so tired, and last year was just such a compounded event, playing 3 days straight and then only 3 days off and 3 days straight. And once you got to the end of that, there was just so much volleyball to be played. And I mean, this team really ran through Kyra Van Reich last year, so it's very obvious why this team kind of ran out of steam. But when you look at this team this year, with the addition of Alexa Gray, who's going to be carrying a little load with the, added maturity of players like Mitrovic and Hillary Howe and stuff like that. I think this team can kind of take a run at things. I think this team can really show some special things. Now, I think maybe perhaps expecting great swing there, Hillary. Good job. Looking spry early. I like it. I think this with this team, expecting to get into the playoffs is top 8, and that might be a bit of a stretch. That might be too much to ask early on. But I think first and foremost, not getting relegated is obviously the first thing in mind. That's the first goal, and I honestly think that's going to be attainable pretty easily. Right, I don't think we're gonna struggle. I don't think it's gonna come to the last games. Like I think we're gonna find ourselves in the thick of things, kind of the beginning. And so far, it's looking good. We're up 5-4 on Poland. But I think that's the other thing is make sure that they are in the thick of things and make sure that they're able to kind of go with these mid-level teams like the Polands, like the Thailands, like the Koreas. There's a lot of turnover right now, especially this first weekend, which we can start talking about a little bit. I mentioned it earlier. Dominican got absolutely whacked by the United States last night, and the United States is looking like a B roster. They've got a few pieces in there, but very few of the Olympians were featured on that roster this weekend. So there's a big opportunity there, and Dominican Republic wasn't looking the greatest either. So we'll have to check in a second or two if they actually play the Dominican this week. It's a weird format this year where you can have a team in your group. Like there's going to be 8 teams per group, but each team only plays 4 matches. So there's going to be 4 matches. So there's going to be teams you don't play at all, and you're going to have days off. So real quick, let's just go over and look at the roster for this week. Looks pretty good. It's basically our top roster, except for a few of the pieces. Obviously, I think missing Kim Rabitaille and Shonda Joseph are the big ones, but we're gonna give some opportunity for the other ones to get in. Obviously, Alexa Gray, she's going to be great in the VNL. It's going to be for her first time playing like fully in the VNL, so that's awesome. I mean, we're already up 8-4, so anyone doubting us can eat it. Just going through in the middle, we've got Alyssa Federer, Jasmine White, Jennifer Cross, and Emily Maglio. Now, I may have forgotten if Federer are on that list, but I'm very surprised and excited to see Alyssa Federer here. Now, I know she had switched to the beach a little while ago, had been playing at Hawaii, and yeah, she's a player that I watched play at Michigan State as well on the indoor side of things. Always a big fan of hers, so I'm excited to see her back in the indoor fold. Kyra Van Reich, Julia Merman, Jasmine White, Alexa Gray, Courtney Baker, Andrea Mitrovic, Jen Cross, Bree King, Hillary Howe, Caroline Livingston, Katarina Georgiadis, Emily Maglio, and Sydney Grills. Now, I honestly expect to see most of these, if not all of these players, over the course of the weekend. Sydney Grills might be the one that we may not, and likewise in the middle position with Alyssa Federer, just because of how good everyone is ahead of her, But then again, we can't expect Kyra to do everything this weekend, so maybe we'll get to see the young phenom and kind of what she can do. No, that's the old men's schedule. Let's just find the schedule real quick to see what's going to be going on. Oh, just real quick, Poland's brought it back, and they're only trailing 7-8 now. Oh, good run. Ooh, a little bit too inside. Gotta push that out a little bit, Bree. Gender, women's, team, Canada. Oh, of course, I'm on last year's VNL. Jesus, guys, sometimes I wonder why you watch this show. It's so terrible. Gender, women's, Canada. All right, so yeah, it's playing Poland tonight, Dominican tomorrow on Thursday, USA on Friday. I'm unfortunately going to be missing both of those matches because I'll be at work, so that sucks. They get a day off on Saturday, and then we'll close things out on Sunday. Now, here's the deal. I'm looking at this line, this schedule, knowing the roster that Dominican has brought, knowing the roster that the USA has brought, not knowing much about the Korean roster, but knowing how we've played them recently and how we kind of owe them one. Um, I wouldn't be astonished if we went 4-0 in the first week. I wouldn't be. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I know. And, like, I'm not saying I'm expecting it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not giving it my stamp of approval 100%. But I'm just saying I wouldn't be astonished if we went 4-0. It would take a lot of luck, right? It would take some people kind of some other teams not showing up and some things happening. But I I wouldn't be astonished. That being said, it could also happen. I also wouldn't be astonished if we went 0-4 too. That I think is even less likely to happen, to be perfectly honest. But I do think there's some winnable games here, especially against the Dominican Republic. And now that's a team that they've been so close to for so long. We saw it last year at VNL, and they had it early on and kind of fizzled out. Last year's NORCECA Championships, you can't even really consider with the athletes that were missing for that one. So yeah, I think that the one against Dominican Republic tomorrow night is going to be absolutely massive and one of the biggest ones to watch. And now right before coming on here, I was getting some flack in the Discord kind of about what they thought. And of course, it was the usual culprit and Ronnie. Um, and now I don't know how people think they can look at this team and think that this team is going to be bad and finish last place. I mean, just looking at Alexa Gray and Kyra Van Reich, right? Like Alexa Gray has been a top 10 scorer in the best league in the world for 2 seasons in a row now, right? Scoring over 400 points in Italy. And I mean, you're not telling me that would have been way more if she had her setter, Jordan Poulter, setting her for the rest of the season this year at Busto. And, they made a great run to the Champions League semifinals last season, beating Vakuf Bank before Vakuf Bank lost to Canigliano in the finals. And Alexa Gray was the reason. She was the MVP of the match when they beat Vakuf Bank. So she is 100% a top 10 outside in the world. And the same can be said with Kyra Van Reich on the other side. She's a little bit younger and still proving herself, but she just threw down another fantastic season in Italy playing for THY, which is sorry, not Italy, I apologize, Turkey, which is for THY, which is, one of their premier teams. And now I did say earlier that Turkey doesn't have necessarily the depth that the Italian league does, but that top end is really, really damn good with, Vakif Bank and Fenerbahce and Eksatsibashi and of course THY, and then Galatasaray and there too. Like there's some really, really good athletes and some of the best athletes in the world there. And Kyra Van Reich was once again a top 10 scorer, scoring over 5 points a game, 25 aces on the season. So you've got two elite level scores. Down the middle, you have what I would think is the most underrated middle pairing. You now have a Champions League, a Champions League experience setter with Bree King, and you've got some more Champions League experience there with Hillary Howe, and you've got some young stuff coming into the system. So right now, I think just everything's gravy for this team. I think they have just so much to prove, and it's such an exciting time for this team, and I'm really excited to see that we're able to build off of last year. And I think that's what's been one of the most frustrating things as I just watch Alexa crush one down the line. Poland's trying to challenge it, but I don't think so. It's 14-10 Canada right now in set one. So I'm going to wrap things up shortly and go grab myself a beer and watch this one because I'm excited. But yeah, as I said, there's been so many times in the past decade or so when I thought the women's team has built something and the next year something happens. And there's just been such a whirlwind of coaches kind of over the past 5-6 years, 7 maybe, I can't really remember, that it's really been hard to create any consistency. But I'm really excited right now with the direction this team is going and the group that they have around them. Not only kind of the coaching staff, but the exterior kind of insiders. I think, I think this team kind of has the ability to really become an elite team that competes at the FIVB level, at the international level. I don't think we're right there yet where we're competing with the top, and I really think that this summer is their chance to prove that at VNL and then make a splash at the World Championships in the fall. I really think that's what's gonna happen, and I really think it's that opportunity. Let me double check here on my notes. Sorry, this episode was a little bit rushed, trying to work it in between work shifts before Ottawa next week. Got to make some money to be able to afford being out there for a week and a half. But I'm glad we got it in. I'm glad we were able to talk about it. As I said, super excited for this season to start, and let's just jump into it. Now, as I mentioned before, if you are Canadian, you can check out all the matches for free on cbcsports.ca. If you are not from Canada and you want to watch the entirety of the VNL, and if you are from Canada and you want to watch the entirety of the VNL, you have to head over to Volleyball World TV and buy yourself a subscription. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Spotify later on, thanks for all the people who are in the chat telling me that my mic wasn't going. That's really embarrassing. And yeah, I hope they make me feel better with a win tonight. Have a good one, guys. See you later. Peace.